So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Mashiyach laid waste for many centuries. As we read then Yeshayahu the prophet, we find layers related with the spring feast, the autumn feast, found in Leviticus the 23rd chapter. What can we understand as far as then the completion of the spring feast writings? As we understand, there are 4 writers of the completion of the spring feast, each of them giving particulars of their relationship with the Mashiyach himself. But then later on in Acts of Ruach HaKodesh, we find then many areas of understandings of the Shilishim, or the apostles. Some people, they have a tendency of mystifying the holy instructions, and they tend to have any kind of writing as prophecy. Let's then make it very clear what means prophecy. Simply pointing people back to the instructions. That's the objective behind it. It's not for a person to begin playing with it. It's not to make a name for once. And we should be very concerned how we read the prophecies and should layer the prophecies properly, so then we always point the people back to the instructions, the Holy Torah. Let's then evaluate what's going on as far as Shimon, or Peter. Not sure how they got this name Peter, because Peter from the Hebrew does not exist. His name was Shimon. It never changed. So then, as far as these Shaliach, many say he was hung upside down, and the prophecy related with this is found then in Yochanan, the 21st chapter. Now, what does it mean when so many people they think because a person, the Mashiyach, then was given the example? Peter himself, or then Shimon, he was a person that was a very strong head kind of a guy. He did what he wanted, and he was sometimes a runaway kind of person. But then the Mashiyach was explaining areas related with the spring feast. Those people who are involved truly with the holy instructions and they want their souls saved. In a normal sense, they don't do what they want. But then the Mashiyach was explaining, and many times he did this, then the holy instructions, they were being completed, at least a half of it. And then was coming a time where then the temple would no longer exist. And then they would resort themselves of reading Moses or Moshe in understanding the holy city on the desert. Then, let's read what then the Mashiyach is involved with. Now after they had dined, then the Mashiyach said to Shimon, Shimon, son of Iona, do you love me? And he said these first, second, and third times. Then he said the third time to him, Shimon, son of Iona, do you love me? And Shimon said, he said for the third time to you that he would love him. He said, would he then encourage the others on staying on a path? He said for the first time, love does not exist from the Hebrew language. What does exist is the encouragement of staying on the path of the Torah. Then the Mashiyach said, in the proper words, would you then maintain yourself studying the Torah and maintaining the holy path? And he said this for the first, second, and third times. Then he said, then tend my iwis. He was explaining of the people who were then very babies understanding the Holy Torah. Was him to take care of them. Then amen. Then I said to you, then the Mashiyach is speaking with Shimon. That when you were a boy, you had girded your loins yourself and had walked wherever you wanted. But when you grew old, he's not talking about aging. Let's understand this fact very clearly. The Mashiyach was not talking of aging. He's explaining simply the situation regarding when a person matures. Shaliach Shaul said, when he was a boy, I was doing things like a boy. When I became old, he became mature. Has no relation with being old. There are thousands and thousands of older people, they act like children. They don't have knowledge, they don't have understanding, they don't read. They are atrophied by what they live and what they do. They don't understand. The Mashiyach is not talking of age. He's talking of the maturing. The more a person reads and matures, the more a person wants to maintain the holy path. But when you grew old, you stretch out your hands, and another wilt gird your loins for you, and wilt conduct you where you do not want. Now, the Mashiyach is not speaking that at the end of time of the life of Shimon, he would be then taken by some sort of people and then hung upside down on a crucifix. When people read the holy instructions, these people are sorcerers and they are practicing witchcraft. Because there is no relation with extending the hands, saying then Shimon was hung upside down. Where these people get these crazy understandings? What is the objective of the Mashiyach? Is giving an understanding of the death of a person. The Mashiyach was never for this. If the Mashiyach would reveal the deaths of his people, then they would not have the courage of maintaining the path, would they? That's why the Mashiyach never under any condition was giving future understandings how people are going to die. It's pure sorcery. Those people who are involved in reading prophecies for their own words and then for their own makings, for lifting them up themselves, these people are crazy. The Mashiyach was never explained of being old. He's explaining as you then become mature, as you read the holy instructions, you maintain the holy path, the more you are linked with the city, the more you are linked with the holy path, the more you are linked with tabernacling. And tabernacling does not wander around doing whatsoever tabernacling wants. They have a specific objective. They are directly sent by Yahweh himself, the Holy Creator, via his Son. And when they have a certain season, a certain time, and a certain place, then they have to do what then the Creator himself wants. And they can't play around with it. Shimon was a player. He liked to go over there, in the other place, in the other place. He liked to kind of play around with the situation. He was a fisherman. Like a ram going out and without direction. And Mashiyach was explaining, if you then said you are going to maintain the holy path and take care of his people, Mashiyach's people, then you no longer are going to be going around doing what you want. You're going to maintain the path for the objective of leading other people. And you won't be able to do these on your own, neither going around as you used to do when you were a boy. Now let me ask you this. Where does it say regarding Shimon being hung upside down on a crucifix? Where did they get these from? From their own crazy, twisted, evil minds. And these he said that he might show by what death he would glorify Elohim. There is nothing to do with himself dying. It is to show a person then internal death of himself and producing fruit. Why would Elohim show the death of a Mashiyach? For what purpose? These would place fear in the lives of those people trying to find the path. It doesn't make any sense. As you understand, as Peter at this point, but his true name was Shimon, and he became aware of, he was not going to go around like a Mustang, undominable Mustang, and doing the work. As he dies to himself, and Shimon was very known during his time. He was a very early and young Mustang. You couldn't tame with him. He himself ended up doing the work of Nahashatan himself, and then the Mashiyach said, and then these people are going to take me and destroy me. And the Mashiyach said, it's never going to happen to you. Then the Mashiyach went in his face and get behind me, Nahashatan. Because Shimon didn't understand the whole instructions. As people then did understand, Shimon then changed. He was no longer this wild Mustang kicking around. He had to understand the importance of maintaining the path and helping other people. And people would sense the change in his life, and they would say to themselves, something in this guy has died. And now he's teaching other people and make sure he's maintaining the path. And after he said these situations, he said, come after me. Of course, he was the very path being shown. Now let me ask you this. Would the Mashiyach then play around with the Mashiyach, say, you know what? At some point in your life, before you die, then they're going to hang you upside down. And this is going to glorify the Holy Creator. How would you be then involved with the Mashiyach saying these words? Whatsoever you do for the kingdom of God, at the end, that's how you're going to end up as. Let me ask you this. Would you be encouraged to maintain the path? So when speaking of churches and religious establishments, they only want to make a name for themselves. They say the most craziest situations only to get the focus of the people on the wrong path. And why are we reading then this section? Because previously, the Mashiyach was given an understanding of a person should bear fruit. Isn't that the Mashiyach then making a line of understanding how to maintain the path? First he explains, then, he is the vine. His father, Yahweh, is the cultivator. He cleans it, he prunes it to make sure no junk comes out, and then maintaining the path very straightforward. As you read the rest of it, you understand he's tightening up the bolts, so to speak, until reaches the situation that he spoke one of his worst disciples. Peter was far the worst wild, in quote, Mustang type of a Mashiyach he was. And the Mashiyach had to grab him at some point and say, you can't do this anymore. You can be yourself and you can't become this wild Mustang kicking around and then trying to be fruitful. You have to die to yourself first, in maintaining yourself on a path as per the holy instructions, or you are of no use. As far as bearing fruit, what do we understand of bearing fruit? What kind of a fruit we are talking about? What kinds of fruit? What is the production rate that should then be concerned with? Now, if you then read from the Greco-Roman translation, then don't think you're going to get any of it, because you are not. The only true fruit comes from the original manuscripts, the original Torah, the original manuscripts of the Shilishim. Now, the problem is, even the Catholics, they are so Christian-minded sort of people, they are already changing some of the translations of their own, giving place to those people who are gays. Now, what the Pope has in mind, not sure, but it's not positive. Should they be included in the church? It's not for me to answer this question, because church doesn't exist. What does exist is the study of the Holy Torah, and reading and doing what the Mashiyach said to do and observe. As the lineage of those who are Hebrews, they have an objective, and the Gentiles, they also have objectives. The other religious groups, they are not even part of it. They translated documents, they did not have a clue what they were translating. And they generated ideas of their own, and these ideas, they do not exist. Some of these people, they have the understanding of, at times in their lives, they saw some sort of an angel. Some people have transcendent kinds of understandings. Some people claim they went to heaven and came back. Some people, they claim they went to the inferno and came back. These people are simply crazy. There is no other way of explaining it other than crazy. For instance, reading from Acts, you find Cornelius, who was a charlatan, a scoundrel of beyond measure. He was a centurion, he was in charge of 100 men, and as he was then understanding how the Hebrews were working, then he had taken upon himself what he thought he saw. And then they simply bluntly lied. The recording of Cornelius and what he said is a complete blunt lie. Shaliach Shahu himself said, the Romans, they began working very diligently as far as their place as Gentiles, but then later they became the worst scoundrels ever. And many other understandings of the Acts, they are simply not true, because they have veered away from the holy path of the Torah. Then you find crazy people stating, they saw angels, because they had spiritual understanding, because God told me to do this, that, and the other. When you say God told you something, it's always related with the Torah. At some point, at some way, at any given time, if He truly spoke with you. Understandably, the Creator Himself, Yahweh, does not speak directly with the Gentiles. Must be done in order, so then when the city is built, then the Mashiyach is in the Holy of Holies. He substituted the place of Yahweh Himself for Himself. From then on, He speaks with His closest auxiliaries, those people with the 7 functions, and then reaches the Gentiles. So when those people, they say they had experience in heaven, they are simply crazy. When we read, for instance, Corinthians. Now, let's then make a point. Is the Creator condemning these people? Because at some point, these people will have then the focus, the spotlight, and they have their own ministries, they are earning money with it. They have to understand this fact. When they breathe their last, they are going straight down. They are going to the inferno, Sheol, as a drug dealer that was never then found by the Mashiyach, or then a prostitute. There is no distinction. They breathe their last straight down. Because both of these, they have forsaken the holy path of the Torah. Do these people truly have an experience with God? Did they truly have this understanding? They saw angels. Some say God came Himself and sat down with them and He talked. Any time there is an experience related with instructions, they always point to the instructions. If you have an understanding of the layer related with the prophets, Yirmiyahu, and you have an understanding in the Spirit, always is going to point you to the instructions. One of the 5 Megillas of Moshe, you find at some point you are going to point your understanding back to the instructions, and then reflects back to the prophet, and then you understand the prophecy. What is the objective? Encouraging others of maintaining the path. This is precisely what the Mashiyach spoke with Shimon. You can't do anymore what you want. When you were young, you did whatever you wanted. When a person sometimes is young, understand the holy instructions, they think they can go everywhere. But then when they grew old, other people taking by the hand simply means those people who have more knowledge of the holy instructions, and then they take you where you should go via the plan set by heaven. This means Ruach HaKodesh grabs those people who are older in the holy instructions and take you by the hand. Then you can't go everywhere anymore. Truly hope this was very clear. What was the problem with Shimon? In many of us, we have at some point, at some time, we have some characteristics very similar of how Shimon was. Truly, as we understand, the church is a joke. It doesn't mean they are not nice people. You'll find some very nice and fine, nice people. But this is what they are. They are only nice people. Are their souls saved? No. Why was then the Mashiyach said, so therefore there is no distinction? When he spoke via the Shilishim, one of them said, therefore there is no distinction from Hebrews and Gentiles. What form of understanding is this? When both of them are on the path of the Torah, then the Hebrews have an objective and the Gentiles have an objective. As long as both of them are obedient, there is no distinction as far as the holy path, except they are in distinct levels. Is there a distinction? At this point it doesn't, because both of them are learning from the Torah. Let's make another point extremely clear. As far as the Shaliach that was there in the market, Shaliach Shaul, he was there teaching the holy Hebrews, because the time of the dispensation when Ruach HaKodesh was doing his work, Shaliach Shaul was there, and he was then informing those Hebrews not living in Jerusalem, explaining the facts. The Aurum feast was coming and the spring feast was completed. As he was in the market, then they had over there meat. Back then, those Gentiles, they were very evil. Yet they had some sort of organized city, besides the prostitutes and so on and so forth, and the junky situations of the Gentile lifestyle of living. As he was gathering the holy Hebrews and teaching them the holy instructions as per the instructions of Moses, then some of them came with questions. As we then understand, there are some meats that can be eaten. When we read the holy instructions in the Torah, there are some meats we can eat, some meats we can't eat. Then those Gentiles, they were explaining some of the situations, and some of the Hebrews also was explaining. And then Shaliach Shaul, he knew, because they had to make a living, they had to eat. Then Shaliach Shaul said, when you go to the market, when when you buy a piece of meat, don't be concerned if this meat was sacrificed to demons, but eat it and then resume your obedience. The clean meat, those meats that can be eaten, those meats that are on a holy instructions, so then you can eat them. However, those animals, they are on a holy instructions, those that are clean to eat, yet they are taken to those pagan temples and slaughtered and then placed on the market, so then they are for sale. And then the holy Hebrews would identify this animal clean from the instructions. Then Shaliach Shaul, this meat you can buy and eat. However, if you understand and saw those animals being slaughtered and given to paganism, then don't eat it. Find another slaughterhouse that they don't do this kind of prayers, and then eat what is clean and not given to the slaughter of temples and sacrifices of demons. Now, the Gentile world, when they want what they want to do whatsoever they want to become like a wild Mustang with no responsibilities. Do what you want, you have sin in your life, you can have sex, you can do drugs, whatsoever you want. The Savior, He's nice, and then He takes you everywhere you want. These people are deceived. And they love to say, the holy instructions were then abolished. And sometimes they give, you can eat any meat you want. No. If you are on a path, as per the instructions of the Mashiyach, we should eat what is clean. These are primary and most importantly observed by the Hebrews themselves. The Gentiles, however, they understand they should do very similarly, except entering the holy cities without invitation. Then Shaliach Shaul continued. Then at some point, we can read, for instance, in Romans, there was a huge problem at the time, because people, they were helping the brothers, and they were helping then the cause on behalf of the Mashiyach. The holy Hebrews were gathering around in many places. Ruach HaKodesh was speaking through the Hebrews, and the Gentiles were receiving the benefits from this obedience. As the Hebrews were obedient, then the Gentiles were obviously receiving benefits if they were obedient. Cornelius had a great chance of becoming a great Gentile, and he scoundrelized himself by saying he saw an angel. Angels at the time were scarce in a holy temple. So then, Romans. What do we understand of Romans? They began their quest very strongly, ended up as scoundrels. So much so that Romans, or the Catholic system, is changing and including gays and lesbians and the whole 9 yards in their stinky works. Let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government. Mashiyach Shaul was then explaining many situations regarding the holy instructions, and every time we understand when the Hebrews, they gather around and they read the holy instructions, a tiny government forms. A divine government forms. Natural fact is then Gentiles, they want to become part of it, so they won't be obedient themselves. Mashiyach Shaul then was involved with many of these, and then people were coming to him. Nations then, representatives and authorities were sent, and then they wanted understanding from heaven. But Mashiyach Shaul was not sent for this purpose. He was pointing those people to those gathering around, and they were praying. Because the movement of Ruach HaKodesh was very strong amongst the Hebrews at this time. Let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government, for there is no authority that is not from Elohim. Every authority of this world is given by Elohim. So the Gentiles of the time, they want solutions for their problems. They came to Mashiyach Shaul. He said, no, I can't help you with it. My objective is not helping you and your government to get over problems that you yourselves have generated for themselves. However, you go over there where those people are praying and you wait for them. So every time those people, those authorities were coming to Mashiyach Shaul and trying to resolve their problems, Mashiyach Shaul said, let every soul, men, women, you name it, let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government, and they are there, they are praying. You go over there and wait until Ruach HaKodesh then manifests himself, then you may receive an answer. Myself, as Mashiyach Shaul, got no time for you. My objective is another objective. So what is the problem with the churches then? They want to make a schedule for themselves. They want to make solutions based from scandalized translations. They want to do whatever they want. They want no responsibility. What should these people do? Precisely what Mashiyach Shaul said. Find those people who are praying, those Hebraic people who are praying. And when Ruach HaKodesh manifests, you wait until you receive an answer. Next time I'm going to evaluate these more. Get more news coming from the international world. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.